Hey, I'm Hollis, and welcome to the Friendly Fangirl podcast, where I nerd out on the films, shows, and video games that I encounter every week. Be sure to follow this podcast, and please follow my Twitter and blog at Hollis Films to follow my journey experiencing the entertainment industry's greatest stories. Beware of spoilers, you have been warned. The Last of Us Part 2 really made everyone forget about all the other phenomenal games that released that year. You know, games that were perfection and didn't tear apart their fan base. I didn't forget. In fact, I remember how in love I was with Ghost of Tsushima. It was a breath of fresh air and was one of the very few highlights of 2020. Ghost of Tsushima is Game of the Week. First of all, this was the samurai Assassin's Creed game we were all waiting for. The combat is ridiculously clean. The 4 different stances are utilized well for different types of combat and combos. Standoffs always feel epic and make you feel cool no matter how many times you do it, and it only gets better as you upgrade how many one-hit kills you get from those standoffs. The open world exploration is amazing. Particles everywhere. The world design is a Japanese fairy tale. Whether you play in color or black and white, stunning views and amazing graphics day and night. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. But it's all yours to explore. Every fox statue, every hot spring. Pet all the foxes, write all the haikus. The story quests are only half the game. Not only are there side missions collected from local survivors, but each supporting character has their own stories, their own arc to play through. Their stories can be completed before, during, and after the main story is complete. Each character has their own set of skills and personalities. My favorite being Lady Masako, who I remember quite clearly was the star of the show at one particular gaming event when they showed off a boss fight against her once. Her story is tragic as she strives to get revenge for her family who were all slaughtered, even the children. This is the second week in a row I have to shout out Lauren Tom. By far my most favorite performance in the game.
Only cowards strike from the shadows.
It takes bravery to break tradition. The tale of Jin Sakai explores the samurai culture and traditions by having Jin break all these traditions and rules. But given the brutality from the Mongols, Jin did what he had to free his home from the invaders. That meant going against everything he knew and understood. Backed up with great supporting characters, amazing visuals, a godly soundtrack. I just want people to remember how perfect this game was. It deserves much love and shouldn't be forgotten. Alright, continuing my Supernatural mini-marathon with Season 10. Man, the first 10 minutes. You got an angry Sam who is looking for his brother who is missing, and then he calls a dying Cass about some lead, and then we see Dean, expecting him to be participating in some sort of massacre, but he's singing crappy karaoke and playing foosball with Crowley, being a little bit of a douche. I mean, he even said baby was just a car. Ugh. That hit harder than him saying, nah, let Sammy die. Like, wow. Dean really is dead. But of course, Sam brings him back, and life goes on, and conversations about trauma, and every episode, you know, the good old days. Rowena has been a fun introduction. I got a crush on every Scottish person ever, so this is a real treat. And after her real first episode, she meets Crowley, and he's looking at her so intensely, and I'm like, ship it. But then he was like, Mom? And I was like, oh, I don't ship it anymore. I liked the first Claire Novak episode. It brought up consequences of Cass using his vessel and also ended on a dire note with Dean going crazy with the Mark of Cain, which is cool and kind of hot. But I'm sure there's going to be a breaking point at some point. Definitely a long way from possessed angel drama, as Dean is losing his mind and Sam is just so desperate to help him, and he can tell he's broken even when he pretends not to be. Sam seeks aid behind Dean's back, which leads to episode 21, when a chained-up Rowena is joined by Charlie and Cass, and while that entertaining drama is happening, we learn that the Stein family is actually the Frankenstein family. I mean, they made Wizard of Oz real. Why stop with the Once Upon a Time show there? That episode was all sorts of nuts, with the ending compelling me to listen to the final song from Dr. Horrible. Rip. Dean tried to save Sam, Kevin got killed. Sam tried to save Dean, Charlie got killed. They're paralyzed with these guys. But Charlie, that one hurt, man. This was actually a season where I really like Sam. I love Jared, but Sam gets annoying sometimes. But this was a good Sam season for sure. And an emotional one for Dean, I might add. The next episode slayed. Crowley had his moments, but Dean went full Hannibal Lecter and slaughtered the entire Stein family. This ended with Cass confronting Dean, and boy oh boy, if Cass dropped the line after he held his wrist looking at him in defeat, I would have cried. Destiel is real, y'all. Okay, but that season finale... several things, but mainly, OMG, I was getting emotional. Like, tears in the eyes. I thought Dean was gonna kill Sam and be moved into this pocket dimension, and season 11 would be Cass's rescue mission, rescuing both of them somehow, but Dean killed death. I hate this show. The finale cliffhanger ended with the dark curse from Once Upon a Time, or the weird shadow monster from Lost, consuming them all. And with that comes season 11. And again, who actually watches the show for the plot? I'm all for the filler episodes, and with the show's 200th episode came one hell of a filler. The episode entitled Fanfiction. There are several things I would like to say. That episode made me lose my mind. There was a fun Clue-esque episode when the boys were stuck dealing with a bunch of rich white people. When Charlie first came back from her Oz Once Upon a Time adventure, she dragged Sam and Dean into her new Kingdom Hearts adventure because Xehanort used a key to separate the darkness from Ventus, and now Vanitas is running around amok, and that's a problem. A confrontation with the Hansel and Gretel witch centers around Dean trapped in his teenage body. That was... yeah. Claire Novak had a couple of interesting episodes. She once shared a scene with Sam where Sam was like, yeah, my mom died when I was a baby, but we seem to get along later in life, because that quote summed up the whole show 1,000,000%. So, the month of May starts off with a couple of nerdy holidays. You know, of course, May the 4th being Star Wars Day. But for Potter fans, May the 2nd is the anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts, which canonically took place in 1998. So for the 25th anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts, I thought this was the perfect time to review both of the Deathly Hallows films. No easy way to say this, but Deathly Hallows Part 1 is my least favorite Potter film. It's just a dramatic camping trip. no Hogwarts. Sure, there are a couple of good moments here and there. My favorite scene being the dance between Harry and Hermione. Just two friends on this perilous, isolating journey, bonding together in a rare moment of positivity. The Seven Harrys, iconic. And Harry's moment at his parents' grave makes me cry. But overall, it's boring to me and is just a setup for part 2. I usually try and give a shout out to the amazing cast and crew, but I have trouble thinking of new additions. Of course, the Davids, Heyman and Yates are back. J.K. Rowling is credited as a producer in these final 2 installments. Steve Kloves, Mark Day, Fiona Weir, Stuart Craig, Janie Tamime are all names we have seen constantly in the last several films. Bill Nighy finally got a little Potter action as Scridgemoor. Michelle Fairley had a single shot and a single line as Hermione's mom. I don't know if this is considered a cameo. Domhnall Gleeson is here as Bill Weasley. Charlie Weasley is pretty much non-existent at this point. Alexander Desplat is undeniably the man of the hour, as if there is anything I love about this film, it's the soundtrack. Wow. From the very first song played in the first 5 minutes, he is not playing. It definitely hits different seeing Grindelwald. I do want to point out that Rowling tried really hard to give as much story on Grindelwald as she possibly could in the Deathly Hallows book. In the movie, he has one blurry scene, but he's got his own freaking chapter in the book. He's referenced and talked about a lot. It may not be Fantastic Beasts level intrusion, but this was about 10 pages away from being a Grindelwald story. It also hits different in a post-Stranger Things 4 world. Jamie Campbell-Bower plays a young Grindelwald. Johnny Depp eventually portrays the character. And both actors were in Sweeney Todd with Helena Bonham Carter, Alan Rickman, and Timothy Spall. Not to mention they've both been in projects with Winona Ryder. Anyways, staying on topic, the Deathly Hallows. The cool animation with Hermione's narration was cool and all, but what makes the tale of the Deathly Hallows is that it's real. It's not just a wizarding fairy tale. There were actual brothers who own these items. I mean, actual brothers in the wizarding world, not like in Earth. I want to I want to make that clear. But yeah, there were actual brothers who own these items, and the trio quickly realizes this. And it's also interesting to note that we know for a fact that both Voldemort and Harry are descendants of the brothers, given their family heirlooms. Rowling has a way of making crazy connections like this, and it blows my mind. Despite my overall thoughts on the film, the final act at Malfoy Manor is pretty spicy. Question: people that hate Snape, do you still defend Draco? Draco was a bully. He was cruel, bit of a racist. I don't care if it was his parents' fault, but he never wanted to actually hurt anyone. I never classify him as a good person, but he wasn't bad either. I'd say the same for Snape. Dobby, on the other hand...
Dobby never meant to kill! Dobby only meant to maim or seriously injure!
Pure light. He was too good for this world. And this death, I think... a lot of my generation can source part of their trauma to Dobby's death. And with that, Voldemort has the Elder Wand, and the final battle really begins. It definitely hits different seeing Aberforth. He really is quite an interesting character. The Dumbledore nobody knows about. The owner of the Grand Hog's Head. The dude with the goats. I must applaud Fantastic Beasts because Aberforth's grouchiness is completely understandable now. I thought he was just angry that Albus died, still held resentment for what happened to Ariana the Obscurus, upset that the war seemed lost, and annoyed at how dedicated Harry was to his given quest. Newt and Harry are not so different. Two little outcasts on some epic quest with minimal background information and a difficult job to do against the great forces of history. Ciarán Hinds may have one scene, but he did a great job portraying the emotion of the unknown and unwritten history of the brothers. Alright, the Battle of Hogwarts. Even just writing about it, or talking about it, or thinking about it makes me emotional. On the other hand, it was also pretty epic. The MVPs were undeniably McGonagall and Neville. Minerva's standoff with Snape was a bit sad because he didn't want to hurt her, but she, not knowing anything, was ready to throw hands and probably would have killed him.
Pier totum locomotor!
I mean, don't tell me that moment doesn't give you chills. I love how Harry tells Neville to hold the fort. It's a small moment, but I always catch that line because look at how far he has come. Neville's actually the best. I love that moment when Harry reveals himself to Snape. What's up with the Order walks in. That part is epic as well. It's like when Thor showed up to Wakanda and Bruce was like, "You guys are so screwed now!" Same energy. Now, Harry vs. Voldemort was drastically different in the film and book. One of the most major adaptation changes in the entire series. I'm pretty neutral to which one I prefer. The book version is more emotional and is a crazy standoff for everyone to witness, but it's just a bit too much talking, I think, for a film. Though the film version is kind of dumb until that final duel moment. They connect in a duel, Neville kills Nagini, and it's over. Music is amazing. The Elder Wand flies into Harry's hands. All was well. There is nothing that gets me more than Snape's death. I'm a Snape supporter. He was a bad guy that did a lot of good. I see a bit of myself in him for that. He was a man riddled with guilt on his own actions and hatred for the world as a whole. He was a teen hanging with the wrong crowd. In real life, 18 to 21-year-olds are in college getting drunk at parties or something. Snape at that age joined a freaky evil cult and was indirectly the cause of the death of the love of his life. Yeah, he was a bully, but there was no one he hated more than himself. And underneath it all, he had heart and was capable of love too.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
With my love for Snape comes the biggest emotional breakdown of the year every time I witness his death. The movie is great, but Snape drops the "You have your mother's eyes," and I'm like, for literally 20 more minutes. I've counted, and it's not just because Snape died. Before I get a chance to recover from his death, Harry just has to walk into the Great Hall to see the buddies of Fred, Tonks, and Remus. Life isn't fair. Remus is my other favorite character. I can't bring myself to talk about it. Then we see McGonagall, who watches Harry leave. Then we watch Snape's memories that includes his past. Scenes from other movies, the infamous line,
After all this time. Always.
Then I remember Alan Rickman is dead. And Harry says goodbye to Ron and Hermione before heading to the forest.
I'll go with you.
It doesn't end there. The Master of Death. I open at the close. Harry is technically the owner of all the Deathly Hallows. With the Resurrection Stone in his hand, he sees Lily, James, Sirius, and Remus for the last time.
You'll stay with me.
Until the end.
Stay close to me.
Always.
Finally, I get a chance to breathe. We see Dumbledore one last time and have several minutes of Voldemort being hilariously cringy. Harry sacrificed himself. It was his love for the wizarding world that helped him win the fight and become a hero with his own chocolate frog card. Hagrid brought Harry into this magical world and poetically carried him away. Oh yeah, Robbie Coltrane is dead. Neville proved he was a Gryffindor with his speech and was willing to die in that very moment. He pulled the sword of Gryffindor, well, Harry jumped out like, call an ambulance, but not for me. I don't cry again until the last shot of the trio standing in front of Hogwarts, and then 19 years later, I don't want to talk about it, because I don't want to think about Cursed Child, but it really is a beautiful ending. The credits roll, the classic theme from Sorcerer's Stone plays. Even now, I just want to sit down and start over, no matter what I do in life, no matter what shows or movies I watch. Harry Potter is the series I always go back to. And even though the movies aren't perfect, the experience of my annual marathon is a feeling nothing else gives. It's magic. Rolling on through to the start of the week, I just gotta talk about my man Voldy. 25-year death anniversary. It's all about Voldemort. So, Tom Marvolo Riddle was not the product of true love. He was the product of a love potion scandal gone bad, his father being a muggle, and his mother being one of the last descendants of Salazar Slytherin, as a member of the once prestigious Gaunt family. Man, if Ominous could see what became of his family. Tom was born in the orphanage in which he was raised. No surprise, he was a bit of a demented child who was also rather gifted in his natural magic abilities. He probably would have become a twisted serial killer anyways. Even if Dumbledore didn't bring him to Hogwarts, he was already on the path to being a complete psychopath. I imagine it would actually be like the Obscurus incident in Fantastic Beasts. Instead of Credence, it would be a raging Tom Riddle going crazy with his self-taught magic. Like, that would be a giant mess to clean up. So, maybe it was for the best he came to Hogwarts. So while Grindelwald was running around doing who knows what kind of chaos in the wizarding world, Tom Riddle was a Hogwarts student. Dumbledore kept a very close eye on him, and Riddle began developing the polite, charming, model student persona as he excelled through his education. Riddle really didn't have any friends, more like he led a group of Slytherin thugs who he spoke of as friends. But he was merely a leader of a very cunning gang. Riddle was also on the quest to learn of his bloodline, eventually leading to his realization that his father was the Muggle parent and his mother was an heir to Slytherin. He opened the Chamber of Secrets in 1943 and sent the basilisk to work. After the death of Myrtle, the school was in danger of being shut down for safety. So, to avoid going back to the orphanage for good, Riddle executed a plot that would have Hagrid charged and expelled for the crimes committed on Hogwarts grounds. The summer after the incident, Riddle found his grandfather Marvolo, killed the Riddle family, and altered Marvolo's memory and framed him for the crime, taking the family ring with him. Shortly after these murders, Riddle came across the concept of Horcruxes, thanks to good old Professor Slughorn. His quest for immortality has officially begun. His goal was to make 7 Horcruxes.
7 pieces?
He placed pieces of his soul in his old diary, the family ring, the Ravenclaw diadem, which he found thanks to Helena Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff's cup, and Salazar's locket, both which he killed Hepzibah Smith for. It was then, at this point, Lord Voldemort had come to power. By the 70s, Voldemort had the support of many Death Eaters, whether they were there willingly or not. Voldemort and his Death Eaters were cruel and destructive. They found allies in giants and werewolves, who had no problem taking out wizards and muggles alike. Anyone who stood up to them was dead. Any Death Eater who failed Voldemort, tortured, and people he killed sometimes were turned into inferi.
It was dark times, Harry, dark times.
I just want to take this moment for the Potterheads who did not read the books. Sirius's brother Regulus discovered the Horcrux secret. He died, Then Sirius died not knowing that his brother, who he despised, was a defective Death Eater willing to sacrifice himself to take down Voldemort. Sirius never knew. You're welcome. Have a nice day. Now we get to the prophecy.
For neither can live while the other survives.
Poor Severus was bullied through school and wanted to fit in and gain a fancy status other than being a loser. Hung out with the wrong crowd, became a Death Eater, and just wanted to prove himself, thus inadvertently betraying the only person he ever loved by revealing the prophecy on a boy who would one day be the Dark Lord's downfall. This is vital information that took us forever to learn when you think about it. Anyway, it was down to Harry and Neville. Harry being chosen as he was closer to a half-blood than Neville, thus Voldemort saw Harry as more of a threat. But look who killed the last Horcrux. So, James and Lily died on Halloween night, 1981. Harry, protected by his mother's love, the strongest magic of all, became the sole survivor of the killing curse. And Voldemort, well, did he turn into smoke? Like, what happened? Did he get quarreled and fly to Albania? Like, what's the story? Anyways, Harry's a Horcrux now. Woo!
You've been raising him like a pig for slaughter.
So while Harry grew up with the Dursleys, Voldemort was floating around Albania in ghost form, possessing animals, just waiting to achieve a return. As Harry was beginning his journey into the wizarding world, Voldy attached to Quirrell like a nasty virus and made his way back to the UK, where he sought the Philosopher's Stone in order to regain his body. You know, I'm only just wondering, Quirrell went to steal the stone from the vault but couldn't because Hagrid got to it first. But why did Dumbledore send for it anyway? I don't think, was this ever explained? Now, I feel like the rest of his story is well documented, well visualized in the movies, and I treat it like common knowledge, even if Lord Voldemort's entire biography isn't technically common knowledge to, normal people. So year one, he's Quirrell's back of his head, was Thanos and turned back into a ghost by Harry. 2-0 to Mr. Potter. 3-0 technically after Harry destroyed the Horcrux in the diary a year later. A year after that, Peter Pettigrew is revealed to be alive, a literal entire book on its own. He flees and searches for Voldemort for God knows why. Voldemort once again traveled across the entire continent back to Albania. I mean, he has quite the attachment to this country. And Pettigrew somehow found him here, and his true return to power begins. We just go with that.
The Goblet of Fire!
Because this movie is such a condensed version of the massive book, I always forget how crazy the Goblet of Fire story actually is. Like, what happened to Bertha Jorkins? It's just tragic. And the whole plot revolving around the Crouch family, it's bonkers. Bloody hell. And baby Voldemort, Voldababy. I have a special book filled with movie concept art, and I was heavily scarred by the image of Voldababy suckling Nagini. Yeah, that happens.
Goblet of Fire.
So, as Harry competed in the Triwizard Tournament, Voldemort was awaiting the final task, in which, with the help of Barty Crouch Jr. disguised as Moody, Harry would arrive to the graveyard. The potion will be brewed, and the Dark Lord shall return. And that happened. However, instead of killing Harry as planned, a little bit of Expelliarmus, some Priori Incantatem, and a handy Accio spell, Harry managed to escape. Now, this did not stop the plan to initiate a second Wizarding War. Voldemort spent the next year gathering forces under the Ministry's nose. It's funny saying a sentence with Voldemort and nose in the same sentence. He enacted crimes perceived as coincidences and executed a plan to get Harry to retrieve the prophecy about them in order to find out how to kill Harry once and for all. 5-0 to Harry for thwarting his plans once more. But with his resurrection fully out in the open, it was full-out war. More murders, trust issues everywhere. It seemed nowhere was safe. All the while, an epic plot to kill Dumbledore is afoot, the only wizard he ever feared. With Dumbledore dead, Voldemort will have truly won the war, because surely with him gone, Harry is next, right? With a terrible head-to-head against Harry, and no prophecy to give him answers, he who must not be named began searching for another means to destroy his biggest threat aside from Albus Dumbledore. The Deathly Hallows. Not just a fairy tale, as many might believe. He only sought one, the Elder Wand. The Death Stick, most powerful wand in existence. This was surely the key to killing Potty Wee Potta. At last, Grindy told Voldy that Dummy was buried with it. The Elder Wand was his. The Ministry of Magic, also his. The Wizarding World, slowly becoming his. This was the endgame. But just as he thought he had won, Voldemort learned of the Horcrux hunt. Say that 5 times fast. Bowling, band of baboons. The diary, the ring, the locket were destroyed. All was left was the diadem, Nagini, and Harry, as well as the cup, which was just stolen from Bellatrix's vaults. No doubt Hogwarts was next on Harry's itinerary, as that's where Voldemort left the diadem all those years ago. And on that eve of May 1st, 1998, Death Eaters marched the grounds of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry snuck into the castle, ready to accomplish his mission. What was left of the Order of the Phoenix arrived, ready for a fight. And the Battle of Hogwarts began. Lives were lost, duels were won, or lost. Giants, Acromentulas, Dementors, Death Eaters threw their forces against Hogwarts, and Voldemort, he was only interested in one death. Voldemort killed Snape, believing to have officially won the Elder Wand. Then he retreated to the forest, where he was to kill the boy who lived. And that's a 6-0 to Harry, as Voldemort unknowingly killed his own Horcrux. Yeah. That was pretty cool, guys. And the final head-to-head, 7-0. I never kept count like this, but Harry beat you-know-who a total of 7 times. In the early morning of May 2nd, 1998, Voldemort dies at Hogwarts. Either in the courtyard or the Great Hall, whichever you prefer. Elder Wand was never his. I don't think it was gonna work anyways. And Neville came in clutch with his last-minute slay of poor Nagini. All Horcruxes down, and good old handy-dandy Expelliarmus, the greatest dark wizard of all time, has fallen. The war was over. Commenting on Voldemort as a whole to end this segment, the way J.K. Rowling wrote him, he was very dark, menacing, evil, essentially the Wizarding World Hitler.
Terrible, but great.
Just like Hitler, he successfully twice gathered a large cult following and killed hundreds directly or indirectly. Just like Hitler, he took over the government, killed anyone who stood in his way, killed followers if they did something he didn't like. Voldemort was ruthless, but just like with any battle against good and evil, light wins. Love wins.
Always.
Ralph Fiennes portrayed him to be this crazy evil dude, and he did great, but Voldy has become quite the meme, hasn't he? I remember in middle school and a little bit of high school, I hated him. He's the bad guy. Of course I hated him. But now I'm in love. There are too many videos on the internet of people doing sexy dancing in Voldemort costumes. Any cosplay or impersonation of Voldemort is legendary. Ralph, you're phenomenal, buddy, but that doesn't mean I won't laugh when you're hugging Draco or rubbing your bald head as you breathe heavily through the slits on your face. And boy, is he fit! Like, when he's dueling Dumbledore and raises his arms, pay attention in that scene. Your boy got biceps. Cursed Child does not exist to me, but heck, of course Bellatrix wanted some of that action, you know? And the way he holds his wand, like, his actual wand, guys, come on, grow up. Movie Voldemort is entertaining. He ruins every moment he's in. Like, you're supposed to be crying, but instead you're like, Voldemort has a direct line to my heart and my funny bone. He might be slowly becoming one of my favorite characters, so thanks, Ralph. You are changing the world one at a time.
That's it for this week. Again, follow me on Twitter or leave a comment, and let me know what you've been fangirling over this week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next week.